You breathe in one invisible cloud and nothing feels wrong. But that is exactly what makes this dangerous. By the time the first scratch hits your throat, the fight inside your airway may already be well underway, and the cells meant to protect your breathing passages may already be under attack. Subscribe for more extreme body science, because the most dangerous part of infection is often the part you cannot feel yet. In the first minutes to first few hours after exposure, virus-containing particles can settle in your nose, throat, and upper airway. SARS-CoV-2 does not need some dramatic movie entrance. It only needs access to the right cells. The spike protein helps it bind and enter airway cells, especially in tissue lining the upper respiratory tract. And one of the most important targets is a type of cell you never think about until it is in trouble: the ciliated cell. Think of those ciliated cells as a moving conveyor belt. Under normal conditions, they help push mucus, trapped particles, and microscopic junk back out of your airway. It is a cleanup system running every second to keep your breathing passages clear. Now, imagine a virus jamming that conveyor belt from the inside, turning part of your own defense system into the first infected ground. That is where this story starts. Day one is often silent. No collapse, no warning siren, just entry, replication, and spread, while your innate immune system tries to recognize what slipped through. One reason COVID spreads so efficiently is timing. Infected people can transmit the virus before symptom onset, which means your body can already be hosting a growing infection while your brain is still telling you that you feel fine. So ask yourself this: if you feel normal, does that mean nothing important is happening? In this case, absolutely not. Day two can still be deceptively quiet. You go about your day, you talk, you laugh, you breathe near other people, and all the while, the virus may be building momentum in the upper airway. Symptoms of COVID can appear from 2 to 14 days after exposure, and many Omicron lineage infections begin with what feels like an ordinary throat and nose illness before the full body response kicks in. That delay is part of why respiratory viruses are so effective. The danger often starts before the story becomes visible. Now, here is the mystery people keep hearing about: the so-called Cicada variant. The name sounds cinematic. It sounds like a mutation with its own horror soundtrack. But the hard truth is more clinical and, in a way, more unsettling. Cicada is a media nickname. The formal lineage is BA.3.2. The World Health Organization has classified BA.3.2 as a variant under monitoring, and CDC surveillance has tracked it through traveler and wastewater detection. Lab data show reduced neutralization compared with some recent strains, but there is still no clear evidence that BA.3.2 causes a uniquely more severe disease pattern than other recent COVID lineages. Science does not get to invent drama just because the nickname is good. Day 3 to day 4 is where many people finally feel the fight. Your immune system is no longer whispering, it is signaling hard. Fever, chills, sore throat, fatigue, headache, muscle aches, congestion, cough, and sometimes stomach symptoms can appear as the body ramps up its inflammatory response. This is the part many people misunderstand. Symptoms are not just the virus hurting you. A lot of what you feel is your own immune system trying to contain the infection. The soreness, the heat, the drained feeling, the fogginess, that is your body paying the price of defense. And this is where the timing gets cruel. By the time you finally notice that something is wrong, the most contagious window may already be open. CDC states that people with COVID can be infectious 1 to 2 days before symptoms begin, and most transmission happens early, around that onset window. So, the first cough is not always the start of the problem. Sometimes it is the moment you become aware of a problem that already had a head start. Here is another detail that keeps viewers locked in for the wrong reason, and should keep them locked in for the right one instead. If the sore throat feels brutally sharp, that does not automatically mean the infection is worse in some dramatic doomsday sense. Omicron lineage viruses have shown stronger fitness in the upper respiratory tract than in the deep lung compared with some earlier variants. That helps explain why throat symptoms can be intense and why spread can be efficient, even when the illness begins more like a hard upper airway infection than the deep lung pattern many people remember from earlier waves. But lower lung risk being reduced on average does not mean lower risk for every person. Biology never signs that contract. If smell or taste changes happen, that is another reminder that this is not just a cough. COVID-related smell dysfunction has been linked to changes in the olfactory system, and in some people, the effect can persist long after the fever fades. Not everyone gets this. Not every variant shows it at the same rate. But when it happens, it reveals something important. This virus is not simply irritating the throat. It can interfere with sensory tissue too. Day 4 to day 6 is usually the loud phase. The conveyor belt in your airway is no longer running normally. Infected cells are damaged, mucus handling is disrupted, and your body is trying to clear infected material while also rebuilding tissue. That is why congestion, coughing, rawness, and deep exhaustion can all pile on at once. You are not imagining the all-over weakness. You are living through the cost of viral replication plus immune response plus tissue cleanup, all at the same time. In the comments, tell me this. When you catch a respiratory bug, are you usually throat first or fatigue first? Now comes the fork in the road. Most people follow path A, but path B is where the dark truth lies. Path A is the recovery arc most people hope for. Around day 6 to day 10, the fever eases. The throat becomes less savage. The cough slowly loosens its grip, and energy starts to crawl back. You are still not automatically non-infectious on day 1 of feeling better, but the direction is improving. For many people, that is the main story. Infection, immune response, gradual control, then recovery. But path B is the one that keeps this from being a just rest for a few days story. Not because BA.3.2 is proven to be some uniquely catastrophic strain, it is not, but because any COVID infection can split this way. In path B, breathing becomes more difficult instead of easier. Fatigue stops feeling like tiredness and starts feeling like reduced capacity. Chest tightness, shortness of breath, and a sense that your whole body is working too hard can appear or worsen. That shift matters because severe COVID is not only about the virus copying itself. It is also about the body's inflammatory response, tissue dysfunction, and how much reserve the person had before infection ever began. So, what decides path A or path B? That is the uncomfortable part. It is not one simple switch. Age, prior immunity, underlying conditions, viral dose, timing, and plain biological variation all matter. Two people can catch closely related viruses and walk away with very different stories. One gets a rough sore throat and a week of fatigue. The other gets a deeper, more systemic illness that refuses to stay in the background. That is why the scientifically honest answer is neither panic nor dismissal. It is variation. And then there is the part people hate hearing because it ruins the clean ending. Sometimes the acute phase ends, but the story does not. The World Health Organization says post-COVID condition can affect about 6 in 100 people who have COVID. Fatigue, breathlessness, trouble concentrating, sleep problems, headaches, muscle or joint pain, altered smell or taste, and exercise intolerance can linger. In other words, even after the fever drops and the cough backs off, some bodies keep paying interest on an infection they were told was already over. So what happens inside your body after exposure to BA.3.2, the variant people call Cicada? First, silent entry. Then upper airway takeover. Then the conveyor belt begins to jam. Then the immune system hits back hard enough for you to finally feel it. Then comes the split, a common recovery path for many and a much darker path for some. The real fear is not that BA.3.2 has already been proven worse than every recent variant. It has not. The real fear is that COVID still knows how to use timing, tissue, and your own blind spot before symptoms to stay one step ahead. Tap subscribe to the channel for more such interesting videos, and watch the next breakdown to see what happens inside your body when oxygen starts to fall and every organ is forced to choose survival over comfort.